What do you mean Ryan will be CEO? My voice echoed through the freshly renovated lobby, bouncing off the sleek wooden beams and stone accents I had spent months perfecting. The air smelled faintly of pine and new carpet, a scent I once found comforting. Now it just made me nauseous. My mother didn't even look up from the brochure she was flipping through. Just a casual wave of her hand, like swatting away a fly. "Claire." "Honey," she said in that overly patient tone. That always made me feel like I was 10 years old again. "Your brother has more natural leadership ability. You're too detail-oriented. We need vision." It hit me like a slap, not because she was wrong, but because of how little my work seemed to matter. Natural leadership Ryan. The same Ryan who once forgot to pick me up from the airport because he got too into a poker game. That Ryan. And right on cue, he strolled in hands in his pockets, wearing that infuriatingly smug smile he'd had since he was a teenager. "Hey sis," he said casually, like we were still just kids bickering over the remote. "Don't take it personally. Someone's gotta handle the boring stuff while I focus on the bigger picture." I opened my mouth but found no words. Nothing that could express the hurt. The betrayal. My name is Claire Anderson. I'm 52 years old. And I've spent 2 decades managing luxury hotels in downtown Chicago, navigating high-stakes mergers, turning around failing properties, training entire regional staffs. But none of that seems to matter here. Not to them. 8 months ago, I gave up everything to come back to Colorado. Sold my condo. Cashed in my retirement fund. I left behind a life I'd built with care and discipline, all to save this hotel. This hotel that they now handed over to my younger brother like a birthday gift? The worst part, they're announcing it at tonight's staff meeting. The very same meeting where I was supposed to share our record-breaking quarterly revenue and occupancy stats. It's like I was never part of the story. Like I never existed. I could already feel the eyes on me staff members I'd trained personally. Loyal employees who'd seen this place go from a forgotten relic to a destination again. Sarah, our head housekeeper of 20 years, stood nearby, her jaw tight, her eyes flicking between me and Ryan. She knew. They all knew. But no one said anything. Because this was family. And in this family, silence was expected. Have you ever felt like Claire when all your hard work suddenly vanished behind someone else's decision? If you're listening right now, we'd love to know, where are you tuning in from? And how does this story make you feel so far? Your thoughts matter. And if stories like this speak to something deep in you, and consider subscribing to Silent Revenge so we can keep walking through these quiet, powerful moments together. Let me take you back for a moment. Before the boardrooms, the budgets, the broken trust, there was a girl who used to sweep the lobby floor just for fun. That girl was me. I practically grew up inside the Mountain Pine Lodge. My grandparents built it in 1971, a cozy little inn back then, with floral curtains, wood-burning fireplaces, and a hand-painted welcome sign by the front door. I learned to read sitting behind the front desk while my mom checked in guests. And I could fold bath towels better than most adults by the time I was 10. The lodge wasn't just a building. It was a beating heart, and for a long time, it was mine. While other kids were out riding bikes or going to sleepovers, I was shadowing my dad as he fixed leaky faucets or reset the boiler. I knew how to handle check-in forms before I could do long division. When guests asked questions, I answered them like I was already on payroll. I was the little manager in training, and I loved every second of it. Ryan was different. 3 years younger than me. He was the golden boy. Charming, effortlessly likable, and utterly uninterested in anything that required real work. He never cared about the business. While I begged to help in the laundry room or decorate for the holidays, Ryan spent most of his time sneaking snacks from the kitchen and convincing staff to let him skip chores. My parents didn't mind. He's just creative, Mom would say with a fond smile. He needs space to explore. Dad would ruffle his hair and nod. Like that was the most natural thing in the world. And me, I stopped asking for recognition. I started working harder instead. I pursued hospitality management in college. Top of my class. Went straight to Chicago after graduation and poured my 20s and 30s into climbing the ranks front desk. Shift lead. Operations manager? Then regional director. I learned the science of service and the art of survival. But no matter how high I rose, every call home had the same tone. That's great. Honey, but when are you coming back? Or worse? When are you going to settle down and get married? Nothing I did ever seemed quite enough. When my father called me 8 months ago, his voice shook like I'd never heard before. He said the lodge was weeks away from shutting down. I didn't ask questions. I didn't blame anyone. I just packed my life into boxes, sold my condo, drained my savings and came home. What I walked into was heartbreaking. The Mountain Pine Lodge felt like it had been frozen in time and not in a charming way. Floral wallpaper curling at the edges, lobby chairs with stuffing poking out, a reservation system that still ran on paper, not digital presence, no strategy, no hope. And the reviews online brutal. Stuck in the past. Smells like mildew. Not worth the price. This was my family's legacy. Reduced to a punchline. So, I got to work. The first month was damage control, replacing broken fixtures, updating the booking software, retraining front desk staff who'd long since stopped caring. I held late-night meetings and early morning trainings. I didn't sleep. I barely ate. I took every cent I had left and ripped out that old burgundy carpet myself. Installed new lighting. Redesigned the lobby so it felt warm. Not worn out. But beyond the physical, I knew we had to modernize the heart of the business. I revamped our marketing, launched a social media presence, reconnected with former guests, and built partnerships with local tour operators. Using my contacts from Chicago, I got the lodge featured in a small travel magazine. Then another. And another. The bookings began to rise, slowly at first. Then all at once, guests started leaving good reviews. Families returned for annual ski trips. Word spread. And still, Ryan was nowhere to be seen. Oh. He showed up once in a while, breezing in like some consultant with half-formed ideas. We should make it more Instagrammable, he once said, before disappearing for 2 weeks. Meanwhile, I was huddled in the back office, elbows deep in spreadsheets and vendor negotiations. I told myself, just wait. When they see the numbers, they'll understand. They'll finally see you. But of course, they didn't see. Not really. 3 weeks ago, everything started unraveling. Ryan, who'd magically reappeared once the hard part was done, had suddenly decided it was time to take initiative. And by initiative, I mean chaos. He strutted around the lodge like some visionary CEO, making impulsive decisions with zero understanding of how a hotel actually works. The first thing he did, he cut our complimentary continental breakfast. Just like that. No discussion. No data review. His reason, too expensive. We can use that money for influencer partnerships. Never mind that the breakfast buffet was one of our highest-rated features. Never mind the reviews that praised it for being generous and well-curated. I tried to show him the guest satisfaction scores clear. Undeniable proof. He literally laughed. Numbers aren't everything. Sis, I should have seen it coming. And then this morning was the breaking point. I walked into the back office and found Maria, our head of housekeeping, sitting alone with tears in her eyes. She'd just been fired. 15 years she had worked here. 15. And Ryan let her go because she wasn't adapting fast enough to his new scheduling system. That system. It would have left us dangerously understaffed during peak checkout hours, something Maria had tried to warn him about. Her resistance was seen as a threat, so he got rid of her. I had to fight to get her job reinstated. Had to sit Ryan down and spell out what would happen if we lost more experienced staff. Had to look Maria in the eyes and promise her that her value wasn't invisible. But that look on her face humiliated. Broken, it haunts me. Still, I held it together. I gathered every report, every chart, every glowing guest review, and went to speak with my parents. Mom sat with her hands folded neatly on her lap, nodding politely as I spoke. Dad barely looked up from his coffee. When I finished, there was silence. Then Mom patted my hand gently and said, "Sweetheart, you need to give your brother a little space. He's just trying to find his footing. He has such wonderful ideas." That was when I saw it. Driving home, eyes still blurry with anger, I passed the old Riverside Lodge. It had a for sale sign out front. My foot hit the brake without thinking. I pulled into the gravel parking lot and just sat there, staring, remembering how this place used to be our biggest competition, how it had fallen into disrepair last season. And suddenly, I saw it. The views were better than ours. Closer to the slopes, more space for a luxury spa. So much potential. I sat in that car for nearly an hour, thinking about every time my parents had dismissed me. Every time they praised Ryan's bare minimum while I carried the weight of this business alone. Something inside me snapped. Or maybe it finally clicked into place. I didn't sleep that night. The idea clung to me wild. Impossible. But loud. Louder than the grief. Louder than the anger. What if I built something of my own? Not a renovation. Not a rescue. But something entirely mine. I called my realtor the next morning before I'd even had coffee. She was surprised at first. Then she got quiet. "Claire, are you sure I didn't hesitate?" "Yes," I said. "Set up a viewing. Today. If possible." The owners of Riverside were desperate to sell. The place had been bleeding money for years. But where others saw decay, I saw canvas, and I had just enough savings and a stellar credit rating to make the deal happen. By noon, I had toured the property. By dinner, I had signed the first round of paperwork. I didn't tell my parents. Not yet. It wasn't spite. Not entirely. It was freedom. For the first time in months, I felt something I'd been missing: energy, purpose, fire in my blood. While Ryan was busy playing CEO at the lodge, I was meeting with architects, contractors, and branding consultants. While he was throwing wine and cheese mixers, I was sourcing eco-friendly building materials and designing guest experiences down to the scent of the lobby candles. I named it the Summit. Maybe a little on the nose, but that's exactly what it was to me. The highest point. My climb. My arrival. Word got around fast in our little town. Some people whispered that I was trying to start a war. Others smiled when they passed me in the grocery store, quietly cheering me on. Many of them were former Mountain Pine staff people who'd seen what I'd built and what Ryan was tearing down. I didn't ask them to leave. They just came. Mom tried guilt first. "Claire, how could you do this to your brother?" Then came Dad. More stern than usual. "This isn't just business. This is family." But they didn't understand. This wasn't revenge. This was release. I wasn't trying to destroy what they had. I was finally building what I deserved. "Are you still here? I just want to ask something small," when Claire made that decision to stand on her own. to choose herself, did something stir inside you, too? Sometimes, it's not the harsh words that cut deepest. It's the silence. The quiet ways we're made to feel invisible. But sometimes, one small moment of choosing yourself is enough to change everything. If you're listening, and if even a part of this story echoes something in your own, leave a comment. Say how you feel. Or just tell me, where in the world are you listening from here at Silent Revenge? We don't tell stories to judge. We tell them to listen. Together. And if you feel like continuing this journey, just one little tap to subscribe will keep us connected. Claire's story doesn't end here. And neither does ours. Let's continue the story. 6 months. That's how long it took. From that afternoon in the gravel parking lot, staring at the for sale sign on Riverside Lodge, to the grand opening of the summit, every day in between was a blur of plans, inspections, of stress, and hope. While Ryan threw rooftop wine tastings and live jazz nights back at Mountain Pine, I was hauling furniture, vetting suppliers, and sitting cross-legged on the floor of unfinished rooms with my team at midnight deciding on paint colors, reviewing towel textures, arguing over espresso machines. I poured everything into it. Every dollar, every idea, every piece of belief I had left. And when opening night came, we were full, not just booked, buzzing. The lobby was alive with laughter, glasses clinking, fireplace glowing. Guests posted photos on social media with captions like, "Best boutique stay in Aspen and mountain luxury done right." That night, as I stood by the stone fireplace in the lobby, I saw them walk in. My parents. Mom's tight smile couldn't hide her shock. Dad's wide eyes scanned every corner of the lobby, the crowd, the design, the success. Ryan trailed behind them. His face was harder to read. Anger. Maybe. Or disbelief. He found me near the bar. "You're trying to destroy us," he hissed. "This is a direct attack on our family." I didn't flinch. I didn't yell. I just smiled, calm, grounded, and more certain than I'd ever been. "No, Ryan, this is me succeeding, despite our family." And it was true. The contrast was undeniable. While Mountain Pine struggled to cover basic maintenance, the summit became known for its thoughtful touches, from heated bathroom floors to curated trail maps and locally sourced spa products. Everything I'd once dreamed of implementing at the family lodge, everything I'd been told was too expensive or too much, lived here now. I didn't build the summit to compete, but there was no hiding the difference. Success feels different when it comes with silence. No celebration from the people who raised you. No pride in their eyes. Just whispers. And distance. At first, it didn't bother me. The summit was thriving. Occupancy rates were climbing. Our name was spreading beyond Aspen blogs, travel websites, even influencers asking to stay. But then came the whispers. At the grocery store, a woman I'd known since childhood turned her cart abruptly and walked the other way. Old family friends canceled our usual brunches without explanation. Vendors I'd worked with at Mountain Pine suddenly became too busy to return my calls. I knew what was happening. Mom had always been the social butterfly of the town book clubs, charity events, neighborhood committees. And now I was the daughter who'd turned her back on family. Who competed out of spite? Who stole staff? Stole business? Stole attention? The small town murmur was loud in its own way. You don't have to say it to feel it. Then came the final sting. I was quietly removed from the regional tourism board, the same one I'd helped revitalize with new marketing ideas just a year earlier. The email said conflict of interest. But I knew the truth. And still, I kept going. When local vendors hesitated, I found better ones in Denver. When the board turned its back, I forged new partnerships with ski tour operators, yoga retreats, event planners. Every time a door shut, I built a new one. I refused to let politics define my purpose. The summit was more than a statement. It was a sanctuary for me, and for anyone else who'd ever been dismissed, doubted, or overlooked. It was a Wednesday morning when they showed up. No call, no warning, just my parents. Standing in the reception area of the summit, their winter coats still dusted with snow. I hadn't seen them since opening night. They looked tired, smaller. Somehow, Dad held his hat in both hands. Mom's lipstick was smudged at the corner, something she'd never allow unless she was too upset to notice. "We need to talk," she said. I led them to my office. The space still smelled faintly of cedar and espresso warm. Quiet. Mina? They sat across from me like guests. Not family. It took them a while to get to the point. Mom talked about the weather. Dad asked if business was good. And then came the real reason. The bank. Mom said quietly. Is threatening to call in the loans? Dad didn't look up. Ryan's been struggling. The lodge is falling apart. I didn't say anything. Just let their words sit there like dust settling. They weren't asking me to return as CEO. They were asking me to clean up the mess. Again, your family, Mom said gently. He's your brother. We need you. I took a breath. I offered to help. 8 months ago, I said, I gave up my career in Chicago. I poured everything into saving Mountain Pine. And you gave the reins to someone who wasn't ready. Silence. You didn't want my leadership then. Now that things are broken, you're asking me to come back. Mom opened her mouth to speak. I raised a hand. I'm not coming back to fix what Ryan broke. That's not my responsibility anymore. They didn't argue. Dad nodded. Barely. Mom looked like she wanted to say more, but didn't. When they left, I stood at the window and watched them walk to their car. The snow had started falling again, soft, steady, quiet, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I owed them anything. Something shifted after that meeting, not just with my parents, but inside me. I started saying no, not just to them, but to everything that drained me. I stopped explaining my decisions to people who were never going to understand. I stopped shrinking myself to be more digestible. Instead, I focused on the life I was building. At the summit, we hit milestones I'd once only dreamed of. Occupancy rates were the highest in the region. Guest satisfaction scores broke every internal record we'd set. More and more boutique hotel owners reached out asking for advice, wanting to learn from what we'd done. I even started consulting for a few of them, helping them build what I had built from the ground up. It felt free, like I was finally living on my own terms. Not just professionally, but personally. I reached out to old friends I hadn't seen in years. We started grabbing coffee, going on weekend hikes, laughing in a way I hadn't laughed in a long time. Not out of relief, but out of belonging. Some of them had once questioned my choices. Now they were the first to say, "You did the right thing." We even hosted a fundraiser at the summit for the local animal shelter. It was a beautiful evening. Warm lights, live acoustic music, families sipping cider beside the fire. That night reminded me why I'd fallen in love with hospitality in the first place. Not for the business metrics or the 5-star reviews, but because I wanted to build spaces where people felt held, where they could breathe, where I could, too. It was 3 weeks after the fundraiser, when the invitation came: Colorado Regional Hospitality Awards, Boutique Hotel of the Year, nominee the summit. My hands trembled when I held the letter. Not because I needed the validation, but because I finally didn't. The night of the ceremony, The ballroom shimmered with golden light and nervous anticipation. Hotel owners, travel writers, executives in tailored suits, they all sipped champagne and exchanged polite congratulations. I stood quietly with my team, my heart steady. When the announcer read our name, something shifted in the room. Applause. Real. Thunderous applause. I walked up to the stage as flashes from cameras lit the path. And in the back of the room, I saw them. My parents. Mom sat with her hands clasped in her lap, eyes glistening. Dad gave me a small nod. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. I looked at them, really looked, and felt peace. Not the kind that comes from fixing what's broken, the kind that comes from no longer needing to. This award isn't just for a building, I said into the mic. It's for a belief that we can rise. Even when we've been overlooked. Especially then. The room was quiet for a moment. Then the applause returned warmer now. Fuller. Not just for the success, but for the truth behind it. Afterward, I didn't go to my parents. They didn't come to me. And somehow, that felt okay. That night, as I raised a glass with my team, I realized something I never thought I'd say. I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. Not to them. Not to the town. Not even to myself. I had already proven it. By simply standing in the light I built. I used to think healing meant reconciliation. That someday, my parents would say the words I longed to hear. We were wrong. We see you now. But healing, I've learned, isn't always tied to someone else's apology. Sometimes, it comes quietly in the way your shoulders relax, in the way your voice stops shaking, in the way you walk into your own life without asking for permission. Every morning now, I step into the lobby of the summit and feel it not just pride, but peace. The scent of coffee, the hum of guests, following the laughter of my staff. It's the music of something I built from scratch. Not for approval, but because it mattered. Sarah's still with us. So is Maria. They're more than employees. They're the pulse of this place. And they've become family in ways I never expected. The kind that shows up, that believes in you, that doesn't wait for permission to care. Outside of work, life has softened. 2. I don't chase old friendships anymore, but some have returned. All on their own. Others, I've let go, not with bitterness. Just quiet, acceptance. There are still quiet evenings where I think of my parents. Of Ryan. Of what could have been. But those thoughts no longer come with heat or heaviness. They pass through like wind, noticeable, but not lasting. Because I've built something stronger than the pain. I've built a life. I'm not telling this story to make anyone feel sorry. I'm telling it so someone out there tired, quiet, unseen might take a breath. So if you've ever felt out of place in your own home, or invisible in your own story, you know you're not alone. Some journeys, we walk alone. Some lights, we don't wait for. We learn to strike the match ourselves. If this story made you pause or reminded you of yourself at some point, leave a comment. Sometimes, one line from you can be the echo someone else needs. And if you'd like to keep hearing real, quiet stories like this one, Silent Revenge is still here. Just one small subscribe so we don't lose each other in the noise.